Right. It's time to put something to bed. That's right. I moved myself to my bedroom and I'm now sitting in some kind of faux sexy position. But here is the deal. People keep saying to me, Simon, you're such a biased journalist. I ain't biased and I'm definitely not a journalist. What news story have I broken in the however many years I've been doing this? Not many. So I have decided, after thinking about it, you can't call me a journalist anymore, but you can call me Simon Miller, the Opinionator. Also, hello my friends and welcome to yet another episode of Ups and Downs, because the review train never stops. Today, we are focusing on AEW Dynamite. And if you want to know why, it's called a schedule. That's all it is. Some people seem to pick and choose the ups and downs they do watch and go, can't believe you didn't review this show, but you reviewed that show. We review as many shows as we can. Why the hell am I being such a negative Nancy? Wait a minute. I hit my positive Pete button. Let's go. Orange Cassidy was out to start this week's Dynamite 2. And what would be more fitting than that? Because he has been the star of AEW for a while, had that incredible international title reign, and even though he did lose it to Jon Moxley at All Out, that was such a good main event. So this just made all the sense in the world. That's why the crowd chanted, "Thank you, Orange," at the start of this too, and why we gave him the opening show promo. It wasn't a mistake. He hadn't walked out there by accident. I believe we're about to level him up. And that gets me excited. He also thanked everybody and said that even though he'd been told to stay at home, he's not going to do that, because whether he has a belt or whether he doesn't have a belt, he will turn up to the show. And I was like, man, you are the best piece of fruit ever. Bless this guy too, because he did end all of this by saying, I'm Orange Cassidy, I don't have a catchphrase, which of course now has become his catchphrase. So put it on a t-shirt and make $1 million. Make your cash. That was it as well. Like, it only went 2 minutes, but I thought this was so damn smart, because sometimes what we do is we take a wrestler and we try and fit them around the structure of a wrestling show. Well, don't do that. Let's look at the character and go, what's the best thing to do here? And this will now serve as Exhibit A. We also got things cooking because when he was done, Jon Moxley's music hit, and of course they're now enemies, and Orange was just looking at him, so it's a round of applause. And as I have said time and time again, he should be the AEW World Champion by the end of 2024. So here I am, standing on my soapbox, and I ain't going to be getting off it up. Amazingly too, Moxley was going to be taking on AR Fox, who had Darby Allin in his corner, and I swear, if I was Nick Wayne, I would be livid, because he turned up to AEW, and not only has one of his former friends tried to kill him, but the other one has sided with the dude that tried to murder him. So he is just having a terrible, terrible time. I really like the fact we did do another international title defense here too, because of course Orange Cassidy had made that a thing, and now that Mox has the belt, well, why the hell would you stop it? Jonathan also made sure he grounded this guy to begin with too, with all of these chops, because he had done his research. Flox is a flippy-dippy doodah guy, so if you allow him to flip and flop, we're never gonna stop him. It didn't work at all, because AR then just zoomed over the top rope, he hit Jon Moxley with a dive, and he took him out with a DDT. Now look, I never thought that he was going to win, because that would have been ridiculous, but at least we were having fun. John then held Fox over Barry Barricade. Apparently, this was just the time to use all our wrestling friends, because this is also when AR Fox used Rita the Ring Post to do a moonsault. And I was like, they ain't there to help you jump around, damn it. Without them, the ring would just be smushed on the floor. He also went for the 450, but after this, he was so destroyed, so you know the deal. Moxley just bashed his brains in like he thought there was gold in there, and then when he realized there's nothing but brains, he hit him with the Death Rider. 1, 2, 3. So this was really good, and Moxley is away now. I'm massively intrigued to see who his first proper feud will be, because again, this championship feels like it's at the tippity top of the mountain, and that's where it shall stay. Give it up. Allin did come out afterwards to see if AR Fox was okay, which was a little bit ironic when we cut to the back, and who was chatting to Nicholas Wayne? It was Christian Cage and Luchasaurus. As ever, Christian reminded us that he is doing the best work in professional wrestling right now, because he was like, oh, hey Nick, after you told me your dad was a wrestler, I thought I should look him up, and I was totally wrong. He is even worse than I thought he was going to be. Now, I don't know how Cage has done this, but he says terrible things, and I laugh out loud. So he has totally corrupted me too. Christian also said that he should ignore Darby Allin and let him mentor him instead, when he was like, make sure you say hello to your mum for me. And look, seriously, you would have to come up with a good justification, but I think we should put Nick Wayne with Christian Cage, because again, he is just flying right now. Also, his friends have been our dicks to him, So you may as well go with the guy who has been a dick right to your face. I would also like to go back in time a little bit and remind us that some people are like, oh man, I can't believe Tony Khan has hired Christian Cage. All of you should take your heads and just, I don't know, put it down the toilet for a little bit as some kind of punishment. He is so damn good, and we are lucky to have him. When Emi Sakura was challenging Kris Statlander for the TBS title. Why not? This was really good stuff though, because Sakura wanted to make sure that the audience knew her style, which was, I'm going to run at you, I'm going to be crazy intense, and within about 8 seconds, she had walloped her with the Tiger Driver. They then spilled to the outside, and as soon as she saw that Kris was leaning against him with the steel steps, she absolutely murked her. And for a little while, this actually became a bludgeoning. I was like, man, I think you better stop here, Emmy. She may be dead. Escalation was then the name of the game because I think they'd been watching The Dark Knight. They started chopping each other, then they started striking each other, then they just whammed each other with lariats. I was like, where does it end? Emmy would not stop though because she hates backs and neck breakers, hence why she was hitting back breakers and neck breakers. Well, I tell you, all of a sudden, Statlander just zoomed out the corner, she smashed her with another lariat, she hit the Wednesday Night Fever, and she got the win. It's like, where did that come from? We really should make this a thing though, because it was kind of like Kris can hit the go button at any time and she'll be able to beat you. So look, this didn't go very long, but it was super duper fun times 9,000. Like I searched my feelings afterwards. I was like, oh man, that was really entertaining. Sometimes that's all you've got to do, although I would like Kris Statlander to have a proper feud soon. Maybe it's coming. Giving it up. Roderick Strong was on our screens after this as he continues his pathway to say, I am one of the best out of nowhere new characters ever, and not only am I going to make you laugh, but maybe I'll make you cry. He was with Matt Taven and Mike Bennett too, as he talked about, my word, his hard upbringing, and basically how he had to raise himself because his parents were no good. He then said he used to go to sleep every night with a BB gun. I was like, man, I'm glad you didn't get into any danger. What do you think that's gonna do? This is why he does love wrestling though, because it gave him the life he always wanted. And it's why Adam Cole has been such a goober recently, because he knows all this, and yet he's still being an absolute pillock. None of this matters though, because tonight he will go through to the next round of the Eliminator Tournament, and eventually he'll beat MJF, and then he can take this belt, and he can just wave it in Adam Cole's face. Why not? So all of this is just good, isn't it? Like, Strong has become an absolute nutbag, mostly because we don't care about his neck health, but he is now crossing the lines between goofy wrestling and serious wrestling, and proven that if you do it well, it is totally okay. I also like the fact that it could head in multiple directions, and it's giving other characters multiple storylines to be invested with, and that's when you know a wrestling show is firing on all cylinders. I am giving it an up. But then Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara decided, you know what? Let's get back on track with our taggers team. They were facing Aussie Open, which was a really cool match, and I tell you, this Chris Jericho, he has done it time and time again. He just has a knack for putting together tag team matches, because there was so much to this, and once again, it told multiple stories. Don Callis was on commentary too, and he had a little segment after this, but I want to let you know straight away, he said, I'm like a serial killer. I'd like to come back to the scene of the crime and look at my handiwork. So I was like, Don, there it is, the crime counter. It rolls up by 1, and you are a huge contributor to this, Mr. Callis. I don't know how you haven't gone to jail. Mark Davis and Jericho then got into it, and they just clubbed each other. When we did give the tag to Sam, and they were able to do their double teaming, because they smashed him with a double shoulder block. They also posed after this because they wanted to be sexy. You know the deal. Carl Fletcher then decided, well, this is really disrespectful, mate. So he got in there and he started bashing out the snake eyes. When Jericho and Sammy did this stalling double suplex, I was like, well, they're both pretty good teams. It was Jericho who warmed his hand up too, so he was able to get the hot tag. And even though he did run wild for a little bit, eventually he got caught in midair after he'd gone for a flying nothing. This was all fine though, because eventually Sammy did save him with a cutter, which will be the name of my new novel. So all of this just flowed brilliantly. Especially when Guevara did this Spanish fly. I mean, I promise you, it was totally nuts. Before all that, though, I do need to tell you about some miscommunication between Sammy and Christopher, because at one point Jericho accidentally ran into him. Now, of course, we're doing this to plant some seeds. I don't think Guevara trusts him anymore. In a panic though, Chris then smashed Fletcher with the Judas effect to get the 1, 2, 3. But right after this, the former members of the Jericho Appreciation Society, which means I suppose Christopher appreciates himself, started shoving each other. And as a little bit of a spoiler, so make sure you turn down if you don't want to know, it certainly sounds like they're going to fight a Grand Slam. It got so out of control too, a bunch of security guards had to run down there. I tell you, wrestling security guards. What do they ever do? They are terrible at their job. Sometimes they don't have any hair. I do find it a little bit weird that they weren't able to beat Aussie Open here if they were just going to fall out and then go on to have a match. But here's the deal. It was a really good tag team match. All the teams are super good, and I had a good time. Sometimes that's all I need. I'm a very simple individual. I mean, look at my face. Giving it up. We then got the highlights from the all-out strap match between Bryan Danielson and Ricky Starks. I'm so glad we did do this, because just in case you didn't see it, Bryan decided, I'm going to try and kill you, Ricky, and if you are going to take it up to this level of brutality, well, we should shout about it from the rooftop. Starks also popped up here too, though, and man, this new character is so good, because he was super pissed off and started shouting things like, man, you're telling me I'm eating the bread here, but I want the whole meal. It's not what he said. He said it far better than that, but you just hear every single word. You're like, damn, I believe it. We're also going to hear from Danielson on Collision, and man, these two should do another match, because we all love Bryan Danielson, and I tell you, Rick is just perfect as this crazy, crazy heel, and even though this is only like a 2-minute video, I am giving it an up. He's like, Simon, I can't believe it, why are you so positive? Go and listen to Ricky Starks speak. He has refound himself, and it is wonderful. This is when Rennie Paquette was talking to Takeshita and Don Callis, and he made that crazy, crazy line. But also, he had like another picture, but it was hidden with a blanket. So I suppose we're going to find out what that is next week. Even more so, because Callis was like, in 7 days, we shall reveal Takeshita's next opponent. Now, I have no idea who that could be, but whoever it is should be beaten by Takeshita when Kenny Omega returns to get his revenge. Because do not forget, at the moment he's 0-2, he got his ass whipped. When it was time for the highlight of the night after this, or at least that's what I think. For our AEW World Champion, Maxwell Jacob Friedman was here. He was a bit like, I don't have to wrestle all the time, but that nerd Tony Khan is making me. But then I realized at Grand Slam we will be in New York, which is when he sang New York, New York. That's my hometown, and now I'm super duper excited. He was then going to talk about Samoa Joe, but of course this isn't Samoa's first rodeo, so before he could get a word out, we got dun 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 dun, and here came Joe, and honestly, given the performance that he was about to give, do you remember that WWE fired him twice? They are crazy. Now, Joe wanted a front row seat for this because he wanted to see what the kid was going to say, when MJF was like, I know why you're out here, because my music sounds a little bit like an ice cream truck. So yes, he was essentially calling him fat. Samoa was ready for anything though, and he was like, oh, that's really funny, but don't forget the last time somebody made a quip like that about me, I was on another network, on another show, and I was right at the tippity top. This is when we got some promo tennis, because MJF was all like, I'm gonna call you the Pillsbury Joe boy, or maybe I'll just call you Samoa Doe. I can't lie, that one made me laugh, because it was so utterly pathetic, it went full circle. It became the best insult ever. He also insulted his penis. I mean, it wasn't that direct, but that is what he was doing. So don't get mad at me. That was the major takeaway. He thinks Samoa Joe has a small schlong. I regret saying it. Joe is so good though, because all he did to respond was called Maxwell a kid over and over again, but he did it with so much disdain, Friedman got super pissed off. He then recapped the story he had told us before about his WWE trial in 2019 and the conversation he had with William Regal, and when he got given the role as security at an NXT pay-per-view, which is when, yes, Samoa Joe shoved him into a wall. The only reason Samoa did that back then is because he knows he can get away with it, but he can't get away with it now, because MJF is the biggest star ever. It's true. I think MJF then decided that he wanted to be on the crime counter, because he told Samoa Joe, if he doesn't back off, he's gonna kill him. So bring it down. It goes up by 1. You're not allowed to do that. Once again, Samoa was ready for all of this though, because he was like, oh, Maxwell, I didn't think you were a kid, but I do think you're a massive bitch. And you know the deal in wrestling, when you drop the B word, it means things are about to get super duper serious. This led to Maxwell slapping Samoa Joe, and fair play to Excalibur, because his reaction was perfect. But Joe was like, I ain't gonna rise to this. I'm not gonna risk my future opportunities, but what I am gonna do is I'm gonna enter that world title eliminator tournament, I'm gonna win it, and then I'm gonna take your title. He even invited MJF to leave the ring, but of course, as soon as he tried to do that, he whacked him in the balls. But because they're both scumbags, Maxwell was then like, well, turn around is fair play, and he booted him in the testicles too. He also bit Joe, which was a little bit nuts, until Joe gave him this massive uranagi, and just as he was about to hit the muscle buster, which would have injured his neck, who came out to make the save? It was Doink the Clown. Imagine it was. It wasn't. It was Adam Cole. Now this was so clever because of course Samoa Joe had broke Roderick Strong's neck and Adam got their super duper late. But here, as soon as his best friend was in trouble, well, you can put the dots together. Friedman sold this like a champ as well because he was like, man, I can't feel my arms. Samoa Joe is so crazy. He walked off going, if you try that again, I will just rip your limbs off. Totally believe him. This is when Roddy and the Kingdom came out and they said to Cole, oh, well, look at this, surprise, surprise, you helped him, but you don't care about me. So all of this is such good storytelling, which is kind of weird because people keep telling me that AEW doesn't tell stories. Once again, though, too, it's also so layered and it can go in any direction you want with multiple people. We've already talked about that, but it's getting it up. As Roderick was already here too with the Kingdom, he had his match against Trent in the World Title Eliminator Tournament. This was just really good too. Excalibur even mentioned that both guys have a history with neck issues, so that tied in. And they got to the wrestling. You wanna know why they got to the wrestling? It's a wrestling show. Trent then hit a Meteora, so Strong came back with a backbreaker, so Trent decided he was gonna hit a DDT. So once again, we were getting to the wrestling tennis. And at this point, Roderick was like, oh, my neck hurts. Because of course he has a really bad neck. And Taven was then basically casting distraction, which allowed Roddy to hit this horrible back suplex. And I think that really annoyed Trent because he then came back with this brutal Death Valley driver. I was like, seriously, for guys that both have problems with their neck, you don't seem to care about it. They just went nuts from here, reminded us how good they are at the grappling, but once again, there was only going to be one victor here. As much as I love Trent Beretta, if he had got the W, everybody would have gone, well, that doesn't tie into the narrative at all. And there was this great 1-2 ooh when he hit a pile driver, but Roderick got his foot on the ropes at the last second. When eventually he hit the end of Heartache and he got the 1-2-3 before him and the Kingdom celebrated. But Matt Taven and Mike Bennett was so good here because as soon as the bell went ding, 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 they ran in and they reapplied the neck brace. I'm sorry, this change of gimmick is wonderful. So once again, it just works because now MJF has a bunch of people gunning for him. And while I presume that we do Samoa Joe first, we gotta do it with Strong at some point. That makes all the sense in the world. Giving it up. And yet even with all this goodness, nobody is better than Toni Storm. Because officially the winner of the, well, where the hell did that come, new gimmick award, she was chatting to Renee Paquette here, and she just keeps getting better and better. The Storm has totally forgotten about what she did do at All Out, e.g. totally screw over Ruby Soho, her supposed friend, in her TBS title match, when Renee was like, oh, we're also having a #1 contender match for the AEW Women's Championship next week, and I do believe you're in it. And Toni was like, Storm then admitted there's no point looking to the past because we must look to the future when she turned to Renee and she went, chin up, tits out, and watch out for the shoe. Paquette was like, what does that mean? When of course some footwear came hurling at her head. I can't get over how good this is. So we do have to go all the way with it, and now she should be AEW Women's Champion again, and we should just get this totally out of control. So it's a massive round of applause, and even though it's like a 90-second promo, it is absolutely getting it up. This sort of carried on as well, because Hangman Adam Page was then back on Dynamite. I just looked around and went, all right. Tony Schiavone was doing the interview here, and we talked about the fact that Page had been in the All Out pre-show Battle Royal, he'd won some money for charity, and he had given it to a teacher's fund because he used to be a teacher. Ultimately, Adam knew how undervalued and underpaid they were, so he wanted to do what he could. But on his lower third intro card, it read, used to be a terrible teacher. So once again I laughed. I love these little Easter eggs. This chuckling then turned to squealing though, because do you know who interrupted? None other than Swerve Strickland. And instantly I was like, oh my gosh, that's a feud that I want. He was with Prince Nana too, who danced on the entranceway for about an hour before he told Tony Schiavone to skedaddle when Swerve got the microphone and he totally eviscerated the cowboy. He was mad at Page for donating all this money to a bunch of kids that were going to drop out anyway, but also, look at his career. You never having singles matches anymore, you never doing promos, and essentially you signed that big fat new contract and now you're comfortable and you're coasting. And you know how I can tell? Look at that belly, and essentially said he was out of shape. I was like, that's the second time somebody has body shamed somebody on this Dynamite. You're going to make people cry. He also pointed out that if he had the same opportunity as Hangman Adam Page, he would be the first black AEW World Champion. And honestly, Strickland just operates on another level. He is so flipping good. He also said he had two options for Page, because either one, he can just ride off into the sunset, or two, he can remember what cowboy shit is all about, and him and Strickland can get into it. I was like, can we pick option two, please? Oh my gosh, pick option two. Now, Page kind of seemed fine with this. He was like, look, if you want to make that match, why don't you go into the back and have somebody approve it? When he started to leave, so Strickland, being a wrestler of some tenure, was like, I know now how I can get you back. And he started to rag on his family. So, of course, the cowboy came back to the squared circle. This was the plan, though, because Brian Cage then teleported in from the Starship Enterprise and he drilled Adam with the drill claw. So there we go. We've got this all set up. We should do it at Grand Slam. And if that match isn't absolutely superb, well, somebody will have put ointment in the water. What the hell does that mean? So please let them go for ages with a proper winner at the end. Because honestly, I don't think this could be bad in any reality. Giving it up. Which is when we went back to our World Title Eliminator tournament, and it was the main event. It was Nick Wayne versus Darby Allin. You knew what to expect here. Total chaos. This is indeed what we got, because they went pin crazy at first. When Darby Allin went for one of his dives, Nick moved out of the way, and Allin went flying into Barry Barricade. This was such a horrible fall that the doctors were out there, and I don't understand how Darby is still walking around. Also, a lot of people got in touch with me saying, Simon, where's Barry Barricade's funeral? It's going to be there next week. I may have some special guests. Just give me some time. When it turned out that Darby could still move too, they got back in the ring, and they both collided with double crossbodies, and I became a detective after this, because look.
Someone had tipped me off that wrestlers were hitting double crossbodies and taking each other out recently, so I knew I had to go on the hunt. After weeks of investigating, I figured it out. Cross means X and bodies exist because otherwise humans would be nothing but smush. So the answer is X smush. I knew it.
And then grabbed the mic and was all like, Nick Wayne, you're not hitting me hard enough. So put his hands behind his back, and then surprise, Nick just booted him right in the skull. I was like, seriously, Darby, what the flub are you doing? I was then in tears because Christian Cage's music hit. He came out to join commentary, which means he was at the curtain going, not yet. Oh, we go now, T-Rex, let's move. Although it didn't bother Wayne at all, because he did this crazy dive to the outside. That should probably be illegal, and somebody should probably arrest him. This then continued because the Kingdom and Roderick Strong were watching on, because they have a vested interest, when Nick was able to hit the Wayne's World for a 1-2, ooh. But then, when Darby Allin was ready to hit the coffin drop, he turned to his buddy and was like, man, I can't do this to him. He's my friend. It's gonna make him a sad panda. This actually tied into the finish though, because he still smashed him with a code red when he was like, I won't hit you with a coffin drop, but what I will do is I'll take your arm, I will wrench it around your back into the most uncomfortable looking position ever, and then I'll boot you in the face while I'm doing it. I'd be like, Darby, I'd rather you did your stupid coffin drop. I mean, of course, Wayne had to tap there because anybody would, although we did give Nick loads here, and I think he's having a terrific time in AEW. And of course, it meant that Dynamite ended with Christian Cage and Luchasaurus looking at Darby Allin, and Darby Allin looking at them, because when you do this, once again, it's Super Serious 9000. So I suppose that eventually one of these four guys is going to win the TNT Championship. It could be Christian, because don't forget, I always forget, he's not actually the champion at all, but he is the best guy in wrestling. Giving it up. Which brought us to the end of AEW Dynamite, and I saw loads of people saying this felt like an episode from 2019, and I agree with you. I don't know what's changed, I don't know what direction we're going in, but I'm super duper excited about it. Giving it up. Now, of course, please do leave a comment below and let me know what you thought about last night's show. Click the video on the screen, which is ups and downs for Monday Night Raw. That's right, we talk about all wrestling promotions on this show. Like the video, share the video, subscribe, WhatCulture.com, follow us on social media, but ultimately, thank you for watching Ups and Downs. I shouldn't have bowed. Not like a theatre promotion, although maybe it could be. No, let's not do that, and let's just say goodbye.